Welcome to the program. Your host, Ron Whitlock. Our guest in the studio today, Barack Obama supporter Eddie Lucio III, Hillary Clinton supporter Gilberto Hinojosa, and via satellite, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. Via videotape, an interview we did with Mikhail Gorbachev, president of the Soviet Union, on his attitude about the border wall along the natural barrier of the Rio Grande River. Welcome to the program, guys. Presidential election cycle has come to the Lone Star State and focusing on the Rio Grande Valley. Would you have ever thought it to happen?
In 55 years, this is the first time in Gilberto Hinojosa's life where Texas will ultimately decide who the next president of the United States will be, and I've never expected I would see that.
Eddie?
Well, Ron, thank you so much for the invitation. It's good to be here, and you know,
exciting times.
Exciting times. You know, being down here and participating the way we're going to in this presidential election has got a lot of folks excited, and I think you're going to see record numbers come out and people be very enthusiastic about this process.
Two good advocates for you to tell you why you ought to vote for their particular candidate. Now, we talked to Hillary Clinton today. We talked to Barack Obama today. Here's what they both had to say about their opinion on the border wall to be built alongside the natural barrier, the Rio Grande River.
I have voted for more personnel to protect our border. I have voted for more technology to be used, and I have voted for a physical barrier where appropriate. Now, my preference was always a sophisticated virtual fence with enough personnel to actually monitor it. There may be some places where a physical barrier is appropriate. But we've got to do much more and to be effective in trying to secure our borders and knowing who's coming in. For me, this is not about immigration alone. It is also about our security. So I do think we've got to be smart about how we try to protect and secure our borders. And that's why I think we've got to be smart about how we secure the borders. You know, not every place is amenable to some kind of a physical barrier. And if we did have the personnel and the technology, I've seen this work in places like Israel and other border places where a virtual fence with the technology to back it up can be just as effective as some kind of physical barrier without causing all the problems.
Well, I think it's very important as part of comprehensive immigration reform to have strong border security. And in some cases that means fencing or some sort of barriers, but ultimately we're not going to be able to build a wall across the entire Texas-Mexico border. And it impinges not only on landowners there, but it's not going to be effective. So what we have to do is work with the Mexican government. We've got to improve economic development on their side of the border so that they're creating jobs and economic development that can provide prosperity for their people. We have to have virtual borders, more effective border control, more effective border surveillance, more officials and officers who are handling the issues down there. And it's also important, though, for us to crack down on employers who I think oftentimes are taking advantage of undocumented workers in order to undercut American labor. And if we do those things, as well as a pathway to citizenship for those who are already in the United States and have put down roots here, are often raising families here and have children who are American citizens or are effectively American, if we combine all those strategies together, I think we can solve this problem.
Now, fellas, I thought it was kind of exciting because both Barack Obama, your candidate, Eddie III, and Hillary Clinton, your candidate, Judge, is, in fact, pretty close. They're both pretty close in saying what they said. You just saw what they said, and that is they think that really a virtual wall would be a better situation, a better solution to the problem of trying to keep illegal immigrants, smugglers, and others coming across the natural barrier of the Rio Grande River.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that a virtual wall will be just as effective and much less intrusive than an actual wall. A virtual wall being a border protected by electronics, surveillance, that kind of stuff, instead of building a physical barrier. One, the message that it sends to Mexico, our closest neighbor in the world, and the country that
huge trading partner.
Yeah, the country that we have the best relationship presumably with in the world, would be horrible if you put a wall up. I think that the experts will tell you that that's just simply something that is all for show and will not result in a curb in immigration the way the administration has put it out to be. So it's not only not a good idea diplomatically, it's not a good idea in terms of ultimately achieving the purpose that you're trying to achieve. And on top of all of that, you're talking about an expenditure of money that is going to be enormous, where we could use that money for building better schools, building up the levees, doing all the things necessary to improve the quality of life of the people of South Texas. And then finally, you have to consider the enormously bad effect on the ecosystem that this wall will have on South Texas. The most protected land, the most pristine land, the most beautiful land in South Texas is that land from the river about a mile to the north. That land has got wildlife that is endangered, both in terms of animals and plants. It's got battlefield sites and campsites from the U.S.-Mexican War, the Civil War, and so forth. And for you to build a wall right down the middle of that would just destroy that beautiful historic and natural habitat that exists today.
Eddie, and you saw your candidate Barack
Yes,
Obama and Gilberto Hinojosa's candidate Hillary Clinton both saying a wall is neither very effective nor efficient. And that's exactly the same thing that Mikhail Gorbachev told me when I asked him a question about the border wall and his position on it at UTPA some months back.
President Gorbachev, if you agree that there is a parallel between the Berlin Wall and the U.S. wall currently being planned along the border with Mexico and the United States, how could you tell President Bush if he were here with us tonight?
Well, I will not repeat what President Reagan once said, but I think historically the Great Wall of China or the Berlin Wall and other walls, they have not been particularly effective, not particularly efficient. And also, even a country as wealthy as the United States doesn't have all the money in the world. Why spend the money on this kind of thing?
So here's the man, Mikhail Gorbachev, who commented at the time that it was Ronald Reagan, and he didn't want to quote what Ronald Reagan had asked him to do with the Berlin Wall, but he did make reference to it after my question, and that is, he says, a wall is not very effective, not very efficient. History would show that. And by the way, he pointed out that the United States doesn't have all the money in the world to be spending money on such an edifice as a Berlin-like wall structure on the banks of a natural barrier, the Rio Grande River.
Yes, sir. And, you know, President Gorbachev, both Senator Obama and Senator Clinton agree to a large extent on the fact that it's not effective. The cost of it is not a good way to spend taxpayer money. And, you know, the fact of the matter is, which is like most of this campaign, in terms of issues, there's only slight differences in their actual policy.
Now, we do have Interstate 69, a highway that's supposed to protect the Northeast, protect the Rust Belt, protect the auto industry in our nation by virtue of all the twin plant maquiladoras, who has one facility on the U.S. side in Texas, another on the Mexican side where most of the manufacturing occurs, thousands of jobs, thousands of auto parts. If they don't get from northern Mexico, in particular Reynosa and Matamoros, to Detroit in time, Detroit will shut down. So fellas, it's important for I-69 to be completed northward, beginning from the Rio Grande Valley, going north all the way to Detroit sooner rather than later. Texas Governor Rick Perry has signed on to try to get this done, as you both know. But now we do have Hillary Clinton, who's been asked the question, would she support completion of this highway? Here's her response.
I've put forth a very specific plan to rebuild America, and that includes our roads and our bridges and our tunnels and our ports. Because if we don't start investing in our infrastructure, we cannot make our economy produce the jobs and the opportunities that it should. So I will certainly look at that highway, but I want to have a comprehensive approach to rebuilding America.
Hillary Clinton signs on, says she will take a look at it. She thinks it's important to invest in infrastructure in our country if we want to create jobs. That sounds like she's engaged in this discussion to try and provide quicker product shipments from our border region to the Northeast, because every minute it takes for those products, parts, and services to get to the northern part of our nation, the more it impacts on us negatively, gives a competitive advantage to Japan, Korea, China, India, and all of our offshore Far East competitors.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know, working on this issue this past session, we realized that, you know, we are at a tremendous shortage right now in our ability to fund infrastructure in Texas. And that issue, I think, has resonated in the mind of every businessman here in the Valley. They're concerned about it. They've spoken out about it. And we've had an opportunity to discuss their concerns. I think right now the lack of support and where we're finding our biggest problem is coming from the federal government. Here in the state, we regionalize our infrastructure plans, our infrastructure efforts, and we created regional mobility authorities, which I think in South Texas have done a tremendous job to get the ball to where they needed to get it in order for the state and the federal government to pick up from there. I
sat as a county judge during the administration of Bill Clinton and during the administration of George Bush. The I-69 concept, the project, was started during the Bill Clinton administration. The idea came out of that administration ultimately.
Maybe that's why Hillary is well up on the project.
That's right. And part of the issue with respect to I-69, as you well know, the Rio Grande Valley is the only metropolitan area of this size in the entire United States that does not have access to an interstate system. So when the Clinton administration, the first Clinton administration was in office, they understood the importance of building an interstate system to...
While you're discussing that, we're going to show the audience emerging distribution channels showing all of these products going through the ports, all the way from Laredo down to Brownsville, all the land ports and going across the nation, north, south, east, and west, and also coming up from the ports of Manzanillo and Lázaro Cárdenas.
And the Clinton administration also was the administration that put together the NAFTA treaty that created this corridor of trade between South and Central America and the United States, which uses Texas to transport these products. And so knowing that and knowing the importance of trade with South America, through this agreement, it was important to create this transportation system that would be able to connect all these major industrial areas like Detroit to these different companies that were part of NAFTA, and they understood the importance of I-69. When George Bush came in, it all stopped. It all stopped. There was just talk. They put up signs that said I-69, but they didn't put up any money in order to fund it. And so I think that quite clearly, you know, if you look at a track record of an administration that was interested in building this road before, it was the administration of which Hillary's husband ran that really took the effort and had the imaginative policies that started this project that we ultimately will see finished with Hillary Clinton.
So you're not surprised to see Hillary Clinton telling us to the studio via satellite today, in anticipation of being on this program, that in fact she is in favor of trying to create this kind of infrastructure, because you're telling me her own husband had started it initially.
That's where that concept started from, but it ended the moment that George W. Bush came in office.
As a supporter of Barack Obama, you're of the opinion that he likewise would follow suit with Hillary Clinton if in fact he's elected President of the United States. That's a question.
Yes, sir. I feel that given the information on day one that he will be presented on our need for infrastructure in South Texas and how important a role that plays in the distribution of goods and services from Central and South America up through Mexico and to various parts of the United States. I know that given that information, he will definitely make that right decision. And you know, it's an area of the country that he may be unfamiliar with at current time, but that he'll quickly come up to speed with, as he has in the various other places that have had primaries prior to our.
Now, I-69 completion, talked about that last segment. In this segment, we're going to talk predominantly about the substandard, very deficient, very defective, dangerous levee system here in the Rio Grande Valley of South Texas, and the need to consider at least building the third dam specified and called for in the U.S. treaty with Mexico. That dam could provide flood control, just like Falcon did. It stopped the flood from reaching South Texas. Your county flooded during Beulah, as you know, when the levees failed in Hidalgo County, almost wiped out half of Harlingen. So we do have Barack Obama responding to this. Would he be in support of the third dam now being built and our levees restored in South Texas?
Well, I think it's very important for us to look at the infrastructure in the region. Levees are going to be absolutely critical, and I think we have to design those levees in a way that they can withstand a Category 4 or 5 storm. They aren't in the kind of shape that they need to be. I think it's also important for us to look at what kinds of natural barriers might be available to deal with some of the storms that could arise, because if we are oftentimes building man-made barriers, but we don't have the natural barriers that have been put in place, then we can be overwhelmed no matter how much we invest. So I think it's important for us to combine environmentally sound approaches with infrastructure improvements. That's something that has been lacking under this administration. It's something that I would make a top priority.
So Barack Obama responds, comes to the fore. Hillary supports I-69. Obama says we need to look at especially the levee system being made whole again.
Well, the levee system in the Rio Grande Valley is, when you call battered, I think that's probably an understatement. In parts of the levees that we have in the valley, they're anywhere between 6 and 8 feet lower than what they're supposed to be. All the hydraulic studies that have been performed up to now will tell you that a major hurricane in the Rio Grande will cause enormous flooding in the Rio Grande Valley, because the levee system is not any good.
$200 billion in loss that FEMA would have to insure and come in and make whole.
That's right. And the problem is that the Mexican federal government is aware of it. I mean, well, they are too, because they're going to get hit on their side. There is no levees on the south side, but the U.S. federal government is aware of it. They've not been willing to do anything about it. I spoke to K. Betty Hutchinson and Corning a couple of times about both of those issues, and the only response was, well, there's no money, everything's being spent in Iraq. And that really is the problem. And I think both of our guys, whether it's Obama or Hillary Clinton,
I think yours is a gal.
Well, both of our candidates would be very effective on this one issue, simply by ending this war and redirecting the resources that are needed to be redirected to critical issues like the levee reconstruction. If we need, we have a drastic shortage of water in the Rio Grande Valley. The Rio Grande Valley has a water policy that counts on the construction of 2 dams, now 3, you tell me, and the hope that we have a small, well-placed hurricane every 10 to 15 years to fill them up, to fill up the reservoirs.
If the third dam had been built before the $1 billion loss due to the Mexican water debt crisis, we would not have lost $1 billion in economic loss due to agriculture at that particular point in time.
Absolutely. And Ron, we learned a lot from Hurricane Katrina and the devastating effects that can occur.
Katrina shut down the New Orleans economy.
Absolutely.
A similar hurricane affecting this binational region, northern Mexico, South Texas, would shut down Detroit, many manufacturing plants all across the nation.
Absolutely. And I think it goes just beyond that. I think Detroit is just one aspect of our maquiladora system. I think there's also other major players, and beyond what we know. I mean, there's factories being built and companies coming in on a yearly basis. And I think that we have learned our lesson, and I hope that we as a state respond. And I know that the federal government has had some growing pains with Katrina, the cleanup of Katrina, the preparedness, the saving for that natural disaster. And either administration, I know, will put the experts in place to help them come up with the legislation necessary to prepare for these.
Presidential candidate Hillary Clinton has come to the Rio Grande Valley. Barack Obama expected that he would be coming to seek your vote, ask for your vote. Why should you give him your vote? We have his supporter, Eddie Lucio III, to tell you why you should vote for Barack Obama.
Thank you, Ron. I believe that Barack Obama is a presidential candidate that will make and inspire Americans to take action for America, to take action in their own lives, to restore faith in government, to restore the world's perception of America, and to take us into a future of unprecedented territory. I feel that given his leadership thus far as United States Senator, his history both at the state legislature and his personal life make him the most qualified to reach out and bring hope back to our country.
Now, pitching for the votes, supporter for Hillary Clinton, Gilberto Hinojosa, Cameron County Democrat Chairman.
You know, America today is facing the most serious crisis that it has faced in generations. It's in the middle of a war that's not going anywhere. The economic crisis is a crisis that has put us into a recession, causing mortgage foreclosures all over the country. Our educational system is in crisis as well. And you really need a leadership in this country that can get things done. You know, I think Ronald Reagan, when he ran against Jimmy Carter, was able to convince America to vote for him when he said, if you think that today is better for you than it was before, then vote for the other guy. If not, vote for me. We remember what 8 years of Bill Clinton was, and I think those 8 years are something that we can look forward to with Hillary Clinton.
Self-styled old battered buffalo, as he called himself, versus the young Turk supporter for Barack Obama. Thank you both for being on our program. It's up to you to vote because these presidential candidates are coming to South Texas asking for your vote on March 4th in the Texas primary. Early vote starts on February the 19th. This program is making contact with the campaigns for Republican candidate John McCain and Mike Huckabee. Hopefully they will be able to participate in this program via satellite, just like Obama and Clinton have done on this particular program. Till next time, adios.
Are you going to vote for Hillary, or are you going to wait for Obama?
Well, I think it's important that we keep a little open mind right now.
So you're going to wait for Obama to come to the Valley and talk to you?
Yes, I'm looking at both candidates.
I am still undecided. I'm one of the large portion of undecided voters. I love Hillary Clinton's speech, and right now she's winning me over. But I'll wait to see what Senator Obama has to say.
You going to vote for Hillary, or are you going to wait till Obama comes to town?
Well, I'll be honest with you. You know, she talked an interesting game. It sounds good, but I think I'll wait for Obama. And you know, I've been reading up on him so far. I think I like what he's representing a little bit more. But hey, anything's possible, you know.
You going to vote for Hillary, or are you going to wait for Obama to come to town?
No, Hillary.
She's Hillary, I'm Obama.
Thank you.